Raise your hand if you have taken our Millionaire Mind Intensive program. Excellent. And how many of you have taken Enlightened Warrior training? Okay. One aho, ready? Aho! Good job. One of the things we implore in people and put down into the cells of their beingness in that training specifically is the idea of doing whatever it whatever it frickin' takes. You missed the word there. Whatever it takes, right? And about success in spite of anything. In spite of what? Because a warrior, what choice do they have? None. There's no, failure is not an option. If you fail, you what? It's over. Finished. So failure is not an option. Success is an absolute must. And we talk about that as a case of being unstoppable. Being what? Unstoppable. Being unstoppable. You know, the speaking business and the training business is actually a pretty small community. There's only a handful of people who are, let's say, in the upper ranges of best-selling authors and trainers who have a lot of people and whatnot. And we communicate with each other pretty often. And every time I communicated with some of the players in this business, I mean the major players, and they knew what we do, I'm talking people like Bob Proctor, Mark Victor Hansen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whenever they found out what we do, they all said the same thing. They go, do you know Cynthia Kersey? And I went, no. You have to get to know her. She's amazing. So I said, okay. I see. So I found out about her book, which is called Unstoppable, and read it. It was frickin' what? Amazing. Unstoppable. I tried to stop. I couldn't stop. It was unstoppable reading. And I got a chance to speak with her and find out the kind of work that she does and what she's up to. And she is truly not only an amazing woman, but an unstoppable woman. What she did was, in her own way, she found out by researching for over 7 years the absolute top people in all of North America and who were unstoppable and who had unstoppable stories, who came from God knows where, and kept on and kept on and kept on until they made it, and they made it big. They made it what? Big. And they have very specific secrets and traits, yes or no? Yes. Yeah, again, you can model certain ways of being, right? And successful people have a certain way of being, yes? And she did this research and put the secrets into her book and into her audio tape programs and into her workshops. And she herself went from a secretary, a what? At Sprint Communications, who's heard of that? To their absolute #1 sales performer from a secretary. Because she was what? Unstoppable. Using those very, very specific traits. So, in the past few years, she's been all around the world. She's been on hundreds of radio and talk shows, including Oprah. I have been waiting to meet her, and I finally got to meet her, and now it's your turn to meet her. Wow. I want a totally unstoppable welcome for Cynthia Kersey!
Okay? Oh my gosh. Okay, that was amazing. I heard you were an amazing audience, but you take amazing audiences to a whole new level. All right? Oh my God. You really do. Now, I saw something this morning. You guys are the high-fiving group, right? I high-five all the time, and when my book came out 4 years ago, my publicist, who was 25 years old, sat me down and she said, Cynthia, This high-fiving thing is very unsophisticated. And I said, Renee, Oprah high fives. And if Oprah high fives, it's good enough for me and it's good enough for you, right? What more can we say? Now you guys, besides the fact that you're a high-fiving group and you're the most enthusiastic audience on the planet, you're different from most people. And I mean that in a really good way, okay? It's true. Let's face it, most people spend more time planning their vacation than they do planning their lives. And you're here today, and that tells me something about who you are. You're making things happen in your life. Am I right? Yes. And despite what you've experienced in your life, I know you want more. Does anybody in this audience want more? Yes. So what more things do you want? More success? Yes. Oh, good. More love? Yes. Happiness? Yes. Health? Yes. Vitality? Yes. Viagra? Yes. I just had to try that with you guys. Whatever it takes, that's right. I'm with you. She's got a can-do attitude, right? And it's all possible. And when you're thinking about the year 2003, I want to ask you a question. If nothing could stop you, what one thing would you do next year? If I could wave a magic wand across this audience and eliminate any obstacle in your way, what would you do? What was that? 101 things? Let's think of one right this second, all right? By a show of hands, how many of you would create more financial abundance in your life? More money. Anybody for more money here? Yeah. Okay. How many of you would pursue a passion? Maybe to write a best-selling book, get a screenplay published, create a masterpiece and have it sold to the highest bidder before you drop dead, right? That's when you make the money. How many people would pursue a passion? How many people would move into a new career? Something you're really excited about. Maybe you'd become an expert in real estate, or become a consultant, or create a business of your dreams. Who would be interested in doing that? How many people would create more health and vitality in your life? Get in better shape? Well, you know, anything is possible. You know that, right? There are endless possibilities to what you can create. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. And it takes courage to pursue a dream. How many of you have a dream for your life that looks a little different than your present circumstance? Can I see your raise hand? Yeah. Okay, that's a good thing, right? Does that cause anyone in this room besides me, on occasion, just the least bit of anxiety? Yeah, how about sheer terror? And yet you're here. And you know, most people won't even try, because it gets hard sometimes. Have you ever been in a situation where it was so tight financially that you couldn't even afford a tall Starbucks cappuccino? That was the big spending thing of the day? And yet you have the courage to continue. You know, Cornell University had a study, and they asked senior citizens if they had any regrets about their lives. Overwhelmingly, people most regretted the risks they didn't take. It was the things they'd always wanted to do and didn't do that haunted them, not the risks that they took. And today we're going to talk about 7 specific characteristics. I've spent, as Harv said, I've spent now over 7 years interviewing amazing, unstoppable people. And I asked them the question, how did you keep going? What motivated you? What enabled you to stay in the game long enough to create the result that you wanted to create? And I identified 7 specific characteristics that each of these individuals embodied, and then I broke it down into a 30-day step-by-step process, which I have in my audio program, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later. And today we're going to talk about those 7 characteristics that you can immediately apply to your life to create the results that you really want and you deserve. And if anybody in this planet deserves it, it is you, because you're willing to do the work. Am I right? Yes. That's right. So before we get into the characteristics, the foundation of being unstoppable is to realize that the ability to be unstoppable always begins with who? Me. With me. Now, I know that seems like such a basic concept, doesn't it? But yet, how many people do you know who really live accepting responsibility for their lives? I mean, most people make a list a mile long of why they can't do something. And this is the first differentiator and the first step to creating unstoppable results in your life. Now, even though it's a simple concept, I know I personally had a hard time embracing this when I was growing up, because sometimes, doesn't it seem it would be a whole lot easier to be unstoppable if the people in our life would just get their act together? Isn't that the truth? How many here have ever gone on a diet? Do Canadians diet? Okay, I'm from California, so needless to say, we know all about dieting. So I remember when my son was born, and I was really eager to get back into shape. Now, I'm not going to tell you how much I weighed. Let's just say when I got on the scale, it said to be continued. So, all right, I'm desperate, okay? And so I was looking through this magazine, and I came across a picture of Farrah Fawcett. Now, I know I'm dating myself a little bit, but I thought, oh my goodness, she looks amazing. And I came up with this idea, and I cut out her picture. And then I found a picture of myself, and I cut out my head, and I taped it to her thin Charlie's Angel body. So now Farrah Fawcett and I are one. That's pretty cool. And so and I taped it to the refrigerator door. How's that for motivation? So Monday morning, the diet begins. Now, way back then, we didn't have the fat patch. Do you guys have that here? No? It must be an LA thing or something. So I had to resort to primitive weight loss methods. And so for breakfast, I get a grapefruit. Now, that'll sustain life for about 30 minutes, right? So by 10 o'clock, I'm starving. Yeah? Have you ever experienced this when you're on a diet? You're literally counting the seconds to your next meal. I had countdowns going on every alarm clock in my house for lunch. So 12 o'clock finally comes, and I get, my menu meal planner says, I get a plain can of tuna and a cup of non-fat cottage cheese. Now I'm starting to get the idea of how people actually lose weight on this diet. It is humanly impossible to overeat on plain tuna fish and low-fat cottage cheese. It's impossible. So I want to get a distraction from this gourmet meal that I'm having. And so I go in and I turn on the television. And lo and behold, there is my lower half, Farrah, on TV. And I got to tell you, we looked great, okay? And, you know, she had the hair thing going, and she had this great little outfit on, and she's talking about her husband. One of her husbands, I can't remember which one. And then she blew it. She had the nerve to say she could eat whatever she wanted and never gain a pound. Well, isn't that special? She had to go. I marched into that kitchen. I ripped my head off of her body. I found a picture of Oprah Winfrey. I put my head on her body and I taped it to the refrigerator door. You don't want to mess with a woman on tuna and cottage cheese. And so now Oprah and I continue fighting the battle of the bulge together until about 3 o'clock. And in walks my husband, bags full of groceries filled with zillions of calories, okay? And how many times do we blame somebody else? If, you know, my goodness, I could be successful. They are sabotaging me, yeah? And if only they would be more supportive, I could be successful. If only my boss would give me a raise, if only management would be more reasonable, if only our children would act more civilized, if only the stock market would go up, then our problems would be solved. And while it seems easy to blame somebody else for our problems, right? Ultimately, it renders us powerless. Because it's hard enough changing our own behavior, much less changing somebody else's, right? And the moment we realize that the solution to whatever you want to create in 2003 and beyond starts right here. And the truth is, that's when our lives can be transformed, because it takes us out of victim mode, waiting for somebody else, and it puts us in control of our lives. Now, looking like Farrah Fawcett was never my husband's goal. And that's a good thing. And so I had to come up with a strategy, right, that didn't include the whole family. And ultimately, I lost the weight I wanted to lose. And this one lesson has served me over and over in my life. It is the foundation for living an unstoppable life. Because if we really get, and if anybody gets it, you get it, but I think we can continue to own it even more in our lives. The only thing that can stop us is ourselves, is the moment we become free. Free of blame, free of waiting, free of hoping, and free to move forward and to solve the problems and create the lives we really want to create. So once we know and own that it's our responsibility, the first characteristic of an unstoppable person is that they are driven by a purpose. Not only do they know what they want to accomplish, but most importantly, they know why they want to accomplish it. They say that creating any result in your life, 20% is knowing how to do it, but 80% is knowing why you're doing it. And if you can create enough reasons why to get out of bed in the morning, why to go the extra mile, you can do anything. And I want to ask you, what is so important in your life? What is your driving force? What do you want to create? What legacy do you want to create that is so important that you're willing to not only show up for these events, but work months, if not years, until you create that result? If you don't know the answer to that question, you are not alone. Do you know William Marston's a prominent psychologist, and he asked 3,000 men and women, what have you to live for? 94% said they had no definite purpose. Can you imagine that? 94%. Did you know the average person works about 100,000 hours before they retire? And most people are in survival mode, right? They're just paying the bills. That is not you, am I right? No, it's absolutely. So let me ask you if you know anybody like this. This woman said, look at her, she's going crazy, she's got her kids, she's got her cell phone, she just came home from work. She said, I don't have time to worry about the hereafter, I just want a life before death. Does anybody know somebody like that? Another one, this guy, he's a prisoner on a boat, and he said, I always wanted to be somebody, but I should have been more specific. We don't want that to happen to anybody in this room, right? So a compelling purpose will give us the motivation that it takes to be unstoppable. Not only the motivation, but it will enable us to create the life that we really want, that gives us meaning and gives us joy. Now, how many of you, when you were growing up, the idea of pursuing a purpose is what your parents and your teachers told you to do? Right, nobody, right? It's certainly in my generation, and even, I don't even know that today they do that. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, and my mother and father basically had two pieces of advice when I was growing up. The first was that I needed to get a good job. Anybody told that? Okay. What was the other piece of advice? A husband. I needed to get a good man. And I'm thinking, okay, how hard can that be? So I thought, what would be a great job for me? And my mother had been a secretary for 35 years. That woman is so organized. In her closets, the moths actually fly in formation. Okay? She's a great secretary. So she encouraged me to follow her path for my life. So I graduate from high school, get my first secretarial job. And in 5 months, they fired me. Oh, you think that's funny, do you? Easy for you to say. How many of you have ever had the courage to admit in front of everyone that you've ever been fired from a job? Okay, 3 times here in the front row. Ann, let's give Ann a hand here. Well, Ann, tell me, despite what people say about it being a positive learning experience, it's humiliating. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go out and get another job as a secretary. I mean, what else was I going to do? But this time, I was going to be the best secretary on God's green earth, okay? So after 12 months of commitment, of devotion to this company, they demoted me, and they cut my hours in half. Now, I always wondered, how does a person get demoted from an entry-level job? Needless to say, I felt like the biggest loser. Have you ever in your life followed somebody else's path for your life, and you want to make it work? Maybe it's something you got a degree in. Maybe it's something your mom and dad really encouraged you to do. You want to do it, right? And you're just pounding away this square peg into this round hole, and what happens? It doesn't fit. Well, I didn't have to be a rocket scientist to realize I wasn't going to be winning in awards in the near future for Secretary of the Year. So I decided I would try my hand at sales, and I got hired at Sprint Communication to be an entry-level telemarketer. Now, how many people think this story is going from bad to worse? Right, because you know what telemarketers from long-distance companies have to do. I had to call people, interrupt their dinner, to ask them important questions like, what long-distance plan are you using? How many people think that would be the job from hell? All right, it's unanimous. I loved it. I couldn't believe they paid me money to talk on the phone. It was perfect for me. And within weeks, I became the #1 performer in the center of 52 telemarketers. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And this was a huge turning point, obviously, in my life. It was my first taste of success, and I wanted more. So while working this full-time job, I went back to college, I got my degree, and I became this great student of what enables ordinary people like me to be able to create extraordinary results in their lives. And I identified specific strategies, and as I followed their strategies, I started creating amazing results in my life too. And within 6 years, I sold a $30 million account at Sprint. It was the Kinko's account, all of their video conferencing worldwide, their phone systems, their long distance. It was the most comprehensive telecommunications contract in the history of Sprint. Okay? Thank you very much. Okay, I'm feeling the love. I love you guys. Can I take you home with me? Yeah. Well, I didn't hear that. Maybe it's best I didn't. And so I'm making great money. I'm getting recognition at the top levels of my organization. And on the outside, everything seemed perfect. But on the inside, while I had achieved a level of success, I wasn't passionate about video conferencing. Some people might be, I wasn't. And have you ever experienced this where when you were being raised and your parents tell you, or people tell you, society says, you got to get a good job, you got to get a big house, you got to get a good corner office, you got to make a certain amount of money, and then you're going to be happy. Was anybody told that here? Yeah. And what happens? You achieve that success, or what they term to be success, and it leaves you feeling a little hollow. So I wanted to get clear on what really would give my life meaning, what would be exciting to me. And so I went through actually a self-discovery process, and I found out something very simple. Actually, it took me a while. As you know, I'm not that quick of a study, but once I get there, I'm perfect. Not really. But I first thought that I needed to find the right job. That's kind of our mindset. And so I pursued all sorts of careers, looking into different things. But I realized in the process I was approaching it wrong, that I first needed to identify what gave my life meaning. And once I identified that, I could find a career to support that. And after going through a lot of self-discovery, I realized something very simple about myself, and I bet it's applicable to a lot of people here. That when I was encouraging other people, something so simple, I felt the most joy and the most satisfaction. And what's interesting is Cynthia means reflector of light. Isn't that beautiful? And I had that engraved on a Bible when I was in college. So I already had a sense that I resonated with that, but I never put it together that that was my purpose until several years ago. So I thought, great, I'll be a professional encourager for a living. So I go to the Sunday morning paper, and there is not one want ad for an encourager anywhere in that section. And so I thought, well, what had provided me with the most encouragement? And I always loved these stories, like Walt Disney. Look what he has created in his life, and yet he was on the verge of bankruptcy every 18 months for 30 years. Isn't that amazing? And I've always been so inspired by those stories. So I decided that I would quit my job to go write a book. Now, I had never written anything more than a college term paper. Well, you think that's funny? Yeah, nothing. I didn't even take like journalism 101. So I had no idea, no reason to think I could even write a book, much less get it published. And you can imagine the look on my family's face, much like this response of this woman here, when I told them I'm going to quit my job to go write a book. I remember talking to my manager at Sprint, and I told him that, what I was going to do, and he's like, you know what I thought you just said? I thought you just said you're going to quit this job to go write a book. That is really funny. And I said, well, that's exactly what I said. And I was hoping, since I've worked for you for 10 years, that you might have some advice for me. You know what he said? He said, you don't need advice. You need therapy. I don't think he was an encourager. So I put a plan together, and within weeks, I quit my job I cashed in my entire life savings. We downsized our life. We sold our house and leased one half the size. I got rid of my Lexus. I bought a $2,800 Volkswagen Jetta that my son was too ashamed to ride in with me. But I didn't care, because I wanted to be free to actually pursue something that really gave my life meaning. And so with everything on the line, I quit my job and start pursuing this new passion. Now, when you're an unpublished author, you are the lowest of the lows in the publishing industry, right? So I was rejected by publishers. I was rejected by agents. I was rejected by people I wanted to interview for the book. And here I am writing a book called Unstoppable. And believe me when I tell you, there were times when I was feeling anything but unstoppable, right? And this little voice started talking away. And it said, you know, who do you really think you are to write a book anyway? Why don't you just put an end to this pain and suffering and go get a real job? Have you ever experienced that in your life as I'm seeing a lot of nods here, as you're pursuing your dream? Yeah. And you want to make it happen, but it just takes a little longer than what you thought you signed up for, right? And it just takes a little more effort than you thought it would take. And then, of course, life happens, and you're tempted to settle for much less than you know you want and deserve. So I had to do some soul searching. And I started reading some of the people that I had been researching. People like Anita Roddick. Do you know her? She's the founder of The Body Shop. She started The Body Shop. Do you know what her purpose was? To put food on the table for her 2 children. That's a pretty compelling purpose, wouldn't you say? But she couldn't find anybody willing to lend her money for this new store. So with virtually no cash, she went to a hospital supply store. She couldn't afford the nice designer labels and the packaging that her competitors used for the body lotions. So she goes to a hospital supply store, purchases these inexpensive little plastic urine containers. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Okay. Then she brought them home. She and a friend sat at the kitchen table and hand wrote every one of them. And then she had the audacity to ask her customers when they were finished with the bottles to do what? To bring them back for refills. This wasn't some big mastermind design. It was out of desperation. How many of you know Tom Monahan, the founder of Domino's Pizza? Have you heard of him? He worked 10 years, 16 to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. He took 3 days off a year, 3 days. And after 10 years, he had expanded too quickly, and he was going to have to file bankruptcy. Well, he didn't want to do that, and he found a management company who came in and took over his organization. They kept him on as president, but took away all of his authority because they said they couldn't find anybody willing to work those kinds of hours for $200 a week. And he, after 9 months, that management team gave him back all of the shares in the company. He said, Domino's is never going to make it. Tom Monahan worked 9 more years. 9 more years. Turning around his business. And of course now Domino's is $1 billion organization. He's able to give millions and millions of dollars away to causes that he really cares about. And as I'm reading these stories, and there's so many, what kind of a reaction does it elicit in you? Exactly, it's inspiring, isn't it? And first off, you realize that other people have problems. You're not the only person that has problems. I know that is a shock to a lot of people, right? They think at the first no, they're ready to, that means it's not God's will or something. That just means that you're in action. It has nothing to do with that. And so I realized that if I just hung in there and stayed with my plan, I had a whole plan drawn out, that ultimately I would create the result I wanted to create. And so I made a decision, and that's really all it is, that I didn't care how long it took. I didn't care how many people told me no. I didn't care if I was going to be 80 years old. I was going to get this book written. And slowly, not overnight, but slowly, I got the interviews that I needed, got the book written. And 2 years and 3 months after I quit my job, my book was published. It's now sold several 100,000 copies. It's in thank you. Thank you. It's in 13 languages. I have a best-selling audio program, and I have the privilege of speaking to people like you. I get emails, letters, phone calls every single day who say, Cynthia, I was ready to quit. And I read your book, listened to your tapes or whatever, and it gave me the courage to continue. Now, I'm not telling this story to you to impress you with what I've done, but to encourage you. The way that you're going to create any result in your life is by following the process we're talking about today and making a commitment, right, to create one unstoppable moment after another. And the compelling motivation is to find a purpose that's bigger than you. Now, I had an opportunity to witness this and experience the power of purpose firsthand about 1.5 years after my book came out. My husband of 20 years and I separated. And we separated in December of 1999. And so for any of you who've ever gone through this experience, you know how devastating it is. And I went to my parents' house with my son, and it was horrible. And I remember thinking, you know, I don't have control over what is happening in my life right now, but what I have control over is how I respond and what I do about it. And I didn't know what I was going to be doing next Christmas, but I was not going to be sitting at my parents' house feeling sorry for myself. I wanted to do something for somebody else. So I got home, and in January, I called Millard Fuller, who had become a friend. He's the founder of Habitat for Humanity. And I told him about what I wanted to do. And he had just gotten back from Nepal. And Nepal, he said, it's amazing. 5 of the 7 largest mountain ranges in the world reside in Nepal. So it's just this majestic place. And yet it's also one of the most impoverished nations in the world. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to raise some money and build some houses for some people in Nepal. Now, one key lesson that I have learned is that when you have a great pain in your life, you need a greater purpose. And so I thought, how many houses would I need to build to offset this pain in my life? So I thought, how about 10? Nah. 20. 50. And when I came up with the number 100, that number was bigger than my pain. And so, and understand, I was in this business. I was speaking. But when we have a big pain in our life, we need a bigger purpose that's not about us, right? Because sometimes we'll do things for other people that we won't do for ourselves. And so when I would get up, when I was going throughout my day, if I started feeling a little sorry for myself, I'd think about the families in Nepal that don't even have a simple, decent place to live. And that kept me going. And so for the entire year, everyone I spoke to, Mark Victor Hansen donated $10,000, and Bob Proctor, we raised $30,000 through his seminar. God bless both of them. And I raised $200,000 in that one year. And the next Christmas, I took 18 people to Nepal, and we launched the building of the first 3 of the 100 homes. Thank you. Thank you. And you know what's interesting is when I was over there, there was one of the family owners, her name was Chandra, and she was a 38-year-old single woman, and that's very rare in Nepal. She said that in Nepal, men can have more than one husband, and that would just not work for her. Do you get one wife? No, no. Oh, thank you. I'm wondering why you guys are looking at me this way. That's funny. Okay. Yeah, more than one wife. Maybe the husband thing might work for her, but definitely not the multiple wives. Anyway, and so when we were leaving, she'd worked in a biscuit factory for 18 years, saving the equivalent of $5 a week in the hopes of one day building a house. So for 18 years, she worked in this biscuit factory. And we were getting ready to leave, and she started crying, and she said, "Thank you so much for helping me get a house." She said, "I hope you never forget me." And I thought, how can I forget you? You're the reason that really got me through the most difficult year of my life. And if you can find in yourself or the people you work with a purpose that inspires them, they will have the motivation to keep going, because life isn't easy. And what I want you to do is I'm going to take you through an exercise. And by the way, the exercises that I'm taking you through today are exactly the exercises that I went through to find out what my purpose is, what my passion is. Everything that we're talking about today, I personally gleaned from the people that I researched, went through it myself, and created the result that I wanted to create. How many people have done work on identifying their purpose before? Okay, so several of you have done it. So if you've already done it, it could help you crystallize more what your purpose is. And for those who haven't done it, it'll at least get you on your road to finding out what gives your life meaning. Because you know what? If we don't find out what really gives our life meaning, why bother? We'll end up being like these people. And I know that's not what you want to sign up for. So the first step is to circle the actions that bring the most joy in your life. So if people didn't pay you 1 penny and you just did it because you loved it, what do you love to do? So for me, it's to encourage, inspire. Maybe for others, it's to serve, to strengthen, to listen, to entertain, to communicate, to build. And this certainly isn't, it's not a comprehensive list. It's something just to get you thinking. The second step is, what are the individuals, causes, or organizations that I most care about? So maybe for me, really, initially when I went through this process, it was people from all walks of life. Now my next book is Unstoppable Women, and I'm really starting to get into women's causes, women's issues. Maybe it's the homeless. Maybe it's, what kind of causes do you guys care about? Just kind of throw it out. Environment. Tobacco cessation. Children, teens, education. Okay, so you got the point. And then the third step is, what is the end result that you want to create for this group? So my purpose is to encourage and inspire. The group is people from all walks of life. And the end result is to raise their vision of what's possible and give them the tools to take action. That inspires me, okay? So I want you to go through this yourself. I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about this. It doesn't have to be attached to your business. What you're doing is really trying to get in touch with what inspires you, and then we're going to talk about how we can marry that with our career, okay? And you know, this is an evolving process, so it's not like it's in stone. It's really to get you started on choosing a project that will help you implement your purpose in life. It's not the one thing that you can do only for the rest of your life. There's a whole lot of different things. So let me add further clarification. So for example, your purpose could be to support families and helping them create financial independence. Maybe you're a financial planner and that would be a great vehicle to do that. Or maybe you want to instruct at-risk youths and the end result is to help them create and raise their self-esteem. Does that make sense? So right now, try not to get too attached to what you think you should have that will fit with what you're doing. Just go with intuitively what touches your heart and what really gives your life meaning. Can I say that with you men here? Are you in touch with your feminine side in Canada? I know Harv's men are, right? You're warriors. Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Okay. Well, we're going to keep moving here, and you certainly can go back and refer to this later. But I want somebody to share with the audience, I want 3 people to simply read step 1, 2, and 3, that what they wrote down. Come up to the stage, and let's give them a hand as they're coming up. We only can take 3. 3 people. Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you can, 1, 2, 3. We'll have you for the next one, okay, Nellie? Let's give Nellie a hand for her enthusiasm. God bless you, Nellie. You unstoppable woman, you. Okay, Joanne.
Yes.
All right. So did you find this helpful?
Yes.
Okay. So what did you write for your purpose?
My purpose is to educate and heal.
Okay. And then who?
Children from all walks of life.
Okay, perfect. Oh, and what's the end result?
The end result is to help them achieve their health and vitality and to enable them to live their lives to the fullest.
Mm-hmm. Does that really inspire you?
Oh, yeah.
If you could have that on your tombstone, would that really do it for you?
It would bring me back to life.
It would. Whoa, that's a pretty inspiring purpose. Let's give her a hand. One final question. Have you identified a vehicle, which we're going to talk about next, but have you yet identified a vehicle and how you can do that?
Yes.
Okay, you have. Why don't you share real quick with the audience?
I'm going to start a series of children's books focusing on their, self-esteem, basically. Mm-hmm. From there, I'm also going to open up a huge, and this has been inspired by my son, it's called a massage group, teaching kids how to touch, teaching kids how to open themselves up and let them know that it's okay to be who they are.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Joanne. Appreciate that. God bless you. Excellent. Thank you so much. That's great. Okay, Terry. Let's give Terry a hand. Send her the love. Okay. So Terry, why don't you go ahead and read your purpose to everyone?
Okay, my name is Terry Tierney, and my purpose is to empower children through dolphin interactions to maximize their self-confidence, self-esteem, to believe in themselves, and to live their life to their fullest potential, and in doing so, inspire others to do the same.
That's beautiful. And okay, let's give a hand. That's beautiful. Are you currently doing that in your life?
No.
Okay, perfect. So do you have a specific vehicle yet that you have identified to do that?
I don't know how it's going to work or what it's going to look like, but I have a name for it. It's called the Dolphin Dream Center for the Confidence of Kids.
I love it. That sounds like a great first step. Thank you so much. God bless you, Terry. Really appreciate it. Beautiful. Okay, one word. Last but not least, Deborah. Let's give Deborah a hand. Okay. Read us your purpose.
The action is to educate and empower children and their families to believe in themselves and live life to the fullest.
Okay, that's beautiful. Is that great? Do you have a vehicle that you've identified to be able to do that yet?
Not in place, but the dream is to have a conference center, kids camp, and somehow be connected with Costa Rica.
Beautiful. Okay, good. So you have something in place and you're in action on it. Excellent. Let's give her a hand. Thank you so much, Deborah. God bless you. So do you see how this is really a powerful tool? Because once you get your purpose, then it's simple. It's easy to identify what your passion could be. So for example, with me, my purpose was to encourage people. Well, there's a whole lot of ways that you can encourage people, right? I mean, there's endless ways that you can encourage people. But as I went through the next process that we're going to talk about today, I figured out that certain ways are more suitable for me than others. And that takes us to the second characteristic of an unstoppable person, is that they're energized by passion. Passion is simply the vehicle that enables you to express your purpose in the world. Now, why is it critical that we find our passion in life? Yeah, why not? Life's a whole lot more exciting when you're passionate. It gives you the enthusiasm that we need to make things happen. George Lucas, the filmmaker of Star Wars, he said, you have to find something that you love enough to be able to take risks, jump over the hurdles, and break through the brick walls that are always going to be placed in front of you. If you don't have that kind of feeling for what you're doing, you will stop at the first giant hurdle. So I want you to imagine creating goals that are aligned with your purpose and almost effortlessly create passion and enthusiasm for what you're doing. I'm going to give you two examples of men who implemented that into their lives, into their careers in two very different ways. The first is Stephen Cannell. He's the largest independent producer of primetime television shows. He's done The A-Team, Riptide, Wise Guide, Hunter. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And he's a novelist, just a very prolific writer. And yet Stephen Cannell flunked the 1st, 4th, and 10th grade. He was kicked out of 2 schools. He failed virtually every English course he ever took. And eventually he did graduate, but at the bottom of his class. So how does this person become the largest independent producer of primetime television shows? He writes the shows. He said that when he was a child, he loved to entertain. That is still his purpose today, to entertain, to make people laugh. And he said that when he was in school, being perfect on paper never entered his mind. He couldn't get it written. He just told stories to entertain kids. So he gets into college, and a professor notices his talent for storytelling. And he works with him to get his words on paper. Well, years and years later, he was diagnosed as having dyslexia. But he didn't let that stop him. And he said that by pursuing a passion served him more than anything else in his entire life. Another one is Wayne Barton. Wayne Barton is a police officer. He's the man on the upper left-hand screen. So he gets paid to arrest drug dealers. That's what he does. But on his off hours, he also runs an after-school program to keep kids off the streets. He sets up training programs for adults to receive their high school equivalency degree. And he prunes trees. He gets the whole community together to keep the trees pruned and the shrubs down so the drug dealers can't hide there. Isn't that amazing? And he also reads to children. Now, he gets paid to be a police officer, but his goals on and off the job support his higher purpose. Isn't that clear? Do you think he has a really fulfilling life? Do you think police officers make a whole lot of money? They really don't, but you know, I bet he's one of the richest people around because he's doing something that he's passionate about. So how do we find, is anybody here looking for that vehicle for their passion that they can create in their life? If you are, I want to see a raise of hands. Okay, a lot of people in this room, the majority. So how do we find the passion? I'm going to take you through the next exercise that I went through when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And this is a very telling exercise. What you're to do is you're to list 10 things that you love to do. All right? What excites you? And then write 10 things that you hate to do. They couldn't pay you enough money to do that. And then what are your strengths? What are you naturally really good at? And then what are some areas that really need to be improved? So let me give you an example of what I wrote on here. And this is my actual list. I'm not even editing it here for you. Okay. So my likes, I loved learning, asking questions, undertaking challenging, multifaceted projects, reading books, brainstorming, meeting positive, action-oriented individuals, creating new products, working out of my home, and having big goals. Okay? What did I dislike? Listening to negative people, whiners, engaging in small talk, managing lots of employees, giving bad news like firing people. I'm horrible at that. Doing paperwork, dealing with office or company politics, managing details, allowing others to have control over my life, commuting to work, and handling accounting or bookkeeping. So those aren't the areas I really want to pursue, right? My strengths, I was a visionary, I thought big. I'm action-oriented, I'm passionate, enthusiastic, I had a successful sales background, outgoing, committed, resourceful, believe in myself, strong support from family, and a very strong desire to be successful. What were my challenges? I had a limited network outside of the telecommunications industry. I didn't know anybody in this field. I didn't know one person in this field when I started it. Limited accounting, finance knowledge. Lacking balance in some areas of my life. That's a concept. I know that shocks probably a lot of people here, right? Yeah, good, thank you. Very hard on myself, perfectionist. Aggressive, may come on too strong because of my enthusiasm. Not tolerant of mediocrity, very fast-paced, opinionated, and impatient. Okay, did I air enough dirty laundry here? Okay, this was my actual list that I put together before I decided that I wanted to write a book. So when you look at this list, it becomes kind of obvious which vehicle to pursue, right? Which project, which career to pursue, and what not to pursue. So for example, based on what I love to do and didn't love to do, pursuing a training or a corporate position in corporate America wouldn't really be where I'd want to be, right? No office politics, people having control of your life. But writing a book or mentoring someone or learning, I mean, all of that, doesn't it see how this is perfect for what I wanted to do? Well, that's what I want you to do. And the way that you're going to be able to identify the perfect vehicle is to really get in touch with what excites you. You know what I love about you is you're willing to invest the time right now. If you're not willing to take the time to go through this, people never figure it out, and they're in careers that they hate. And that's not you, and I love that about you. I really honor that in you. I want to give you guys a hand. You guys are awesome. Really. This is a Saturday, and you're here because you're serious about this. So I'm going to give you another 5 minutes. I know that's not enough time. I know. But it'll at least get you started in the process. And then how many people are going to commit that you're going to continue this once you leave today? All right, good. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Go ahead and go through this process, and then we're going to pick a personal or professional project that you can express your passion in life. Sound good? Yeah. Perfect. Okay, great. Thanks. 5 minutes. So tell us about what your project is.
Well, it's a little different than I thought.
Okay.
I want to work with kids. Earlier, my goal was to help children with literacy and being capable and reliably independent. Responsibly independent. What I've come up with is a wilderness kids outreach school and vocational trades program.
Okay, perfect. So that is consistent with your strengths and your purpose.
Absolutely. My strengths are working with kids, loving the outdoors. I'm great with my hands and building things. I like to really involve myself with engineering and architecture and to get kids involved in doing things that they can.
Wow. Is this exciting that we can actually design a life that we love? Is that too great? That sounds perfect for you. Excellent, Michael. Thank you so much. Give me a hug here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Excellent. Okay, Martin.
Yes. My initial page was to explore and to inspire youth and to teach them how to be responsible with their environment and to be the best that they're capable of and to leave a legacy.
Excellent. Okay, so then the project you came up with?
project is very similar to Mike's. It's just to inspire people to love one another and their environment, and to get them to understand the responsibility and the accountability that they have for leaving something a little bit better than what they found for the next generation.
Okay. Okay, that's beautiful. Let's give him a hand on that. And so the next step, and we're really going to talk about that in step 4, but we want to get a very specific goal, a very tangible, measurable outcome that you want to create that will help you implement that purpose and passion in your life. Does that make sense? All right, let's give Martin a hand. Thank you, Martin. God bless you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Is this exciting? Yes. I mean, it really is to have purpose and passion in your life, even when life happens. We are excited because we feel like our life is counting. We're making a difference. We're consistent with what is really inside of us. So once we have our purpose and a passion that gives us the energy to continue to move forward, this third step of an unstoppable person is they are enabled by belief. Now, this is a really important piece because you know what? You can be passionate about your life. You can be living on purpose, but if you don't believe it's possible, what's going to happen? Nada, right? Nothing. And so when I interviewed these people, I identified 5 specific strategies that enabled them to create the confidence and the faith in themselves to keep on going. And today I'm going to demonstrate the most powerful strategy that I've found after interviewing these people today. And to do that, I need one person who would be really motivated to win $1 million in the next 20 seconds. Okay, so Sean, you're the closest. Come on up on stage. Let's give Sean a hand. Okay, Sean. Oh, that one doesn't work. Thank you. Okay, Sean, how motivated are you with the possibility of winning $1 million on a scale of 1 to 10?
11.
He's an 11. So would we all agree he is maximally motivated? Yes. Okay, now I haven't run this by Harv yet, but I know he'll be able to take it out of petty cash. So it's not going to be a problem, right, Harv? He gave us a thumbs up here. So the pressure is on. Now, what is this, Sean?
It's a lock.
It's a lock. Have you ever used one of these before?
Not for a long time.
Not for a long time, but for $1 million, you're going to give it a shot?
Absolutely. I'll
Absolutely.
Try
So we're going to give you 20 seconds. 20 seconds to open this lock. So $1 million is on the line. Are you ready to go?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So let's give him the love here, the positive energy. We're going to give him 20 seconds. Go! You can't rip it apart, Sean. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, Sean, honey.
Yeah, thank you.
What happened?
I didn't have the combination.
You didn't even ask for the combination. Did you notice that?
But I looked.
Big lesson. Ask and you shall receive. Okay, I don't want to make you feel too bad here.
No,
I wouldn't have given it to you.
I'm a warrior. I can take anything. Bring it on.
You can take it. Okay. So unfortunately, the $1 million is now off the table, but we have some nice parting gifts.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move forward so everybody can see you. So you said you were maximally motivated, but you didn't have the combination.
Yes.
Okay, so if I gave you the combination, do you think you could open that lock?
Yes, I do.
All right, so I'm going to make sure I've got the right number here. It is 25015. No, it's not on there. Oh, I'll help you. Okay, yeah, and then all the way around. 15. Oh, 0, and then 15, yeah. Got to have a good mentor, right? Excellent. Let's give him a hand. Okay. For being such an unstoppable person, I'm giving you my entire program for free today. So God bless you, Sean. Thank you so much. better than $1 million, isn't it? Anyway, you're welcome. So do you know what's really great? It's a simple exercise, and yet I think it's a very powerful exercise. We can be maximally motivated. We can really want something. But you know what? If we don't know how to open that combination, if we don't have the answer, a combination lock does not discriminate. You can be a man, a woman, young, old, rich, poor. If you've got that combination, it will open every single time. And creating an unstoppable life in its simplest form is creating a series, right, is opening these things. And where do we get the combination? We ask people who already know how to do it. So is anybody interested in minimizing their learning curve and creating this passion? Yeah, less time, faster, right? So one of the most powerful strategies to do that is to find other people who are doing what you want to do and then do the same thing. You know, what we ultimately create in our lives could boil down to the quality of role models that we choose to emulate. So I just put these on here. You know, I've got these on my wall, but I thought I'm going to show you who some of my role models are and what I actually have in my home. So Gandhi totally inspires me. He's a man of service. I have his picture right on my wall. Mother Teresa lives a life of love and giving. Love that woman. Oprah, we love Oprah. She's certainly a model. Look what she's done to create, you know, Change Your Life TV. She's making a difference. I was fortunate enough to get my picture taken with her when I was on her show. That inspires me. And then the bottom is, I was at a Habitat build. Do you guys recognize the guy on the far left? Our buddy Mark, he was there with me. To the right of me, that's Bo Derek. To the left of me is her sister Denise. And then to the far right is Millard Fuller, who is truly my all-time mentor. And so it's interesting, I met Millard. I have so many mentors in my life, but I always kind of kid about this. I met Millard, and he taught me how to give my money away. And then I met Bob Proctor very early in my career, and he taught me how to, in a very short period of time, how to actually make money. I just wish that I would have met Bob before I met Millard. That's the only thing that I would change. But this is powerful. When you get discouraged, you look at your mentors, people who've done what you want to do. They prove that it's possible. You know, I initially met Mark Victor Hansen about 8 years ago, and I attended the same workshop that he was promoting here at this event, that book marketing expo. When I finally decided I wanted to write my book, what did I do? I found out what other people were doing and how I could emulate that. I went to his program 2 years in a row. The third time I went to that program, he paid me to come. I emceed that program. Is that cool? So this stuff really works. And you know, we have to be willing to invest money. I have spent, and you already know this, I have spent thousands of dollars on tapes, books, coaching. I spent $4,000 US for coaching for 1 day. 1 day. But what happens? I'm into this 4 years, and I'm way beyond what most of the people who've been in this industry for years. Is it because I'm so great? No. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I didn't want to say it. Thank you very much. Yeah, you just want a free program. That's what he wants. Keep it up. You're on your way here. But the truth is, I've been willing to invest in myself. I've been willing to do the work, find people who could show me how to do it. And that's what I would suggest that you do throughout this weekend. Find people who you want to emulate, who've done what you want to do, whether it's opening a wilderness program for teens. There are people who've done what you want to do. Learn from them. Learn from their mistakes. Dave Thomas, the founder of Wendy's, said, don't wait for somebody to take you under their wing. Go out there and find a good wing to climb under. Is that great? So go find a wing, somebody who can help you on your journey, because you know what? Unstoppable people, generally speaking, are giving, loving people who want to be helpful. So once we have our purpose, we are passionate, we know what we're going to do, we believe in ourselves, the fourth step to creating more unstoppable results is that unstoppable people are equipped by preparation. Now, this is typically not the fun part, right? Everybody wants to achieve greatness, to get the rewards, the satisfaction of creating the result they really want to do. But few people are willing to do what you're doing today, to prepare yourself. And without a plan, your dream will remain just that, a dream. So the first step we need to do to equip ourselves is to oh, I love this quote. Muhammad Ali. He said, I hated every minute of the training, but I said, suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. Is that great? That's what we are all about. That's what warrior training is all about. So once we decide that we need to get a plan, the first step is we have to get very specific on the result that we want to create. That's why I was talking to this gentleman. He wants to inspire children. We need to have a very specific, measurable, tangible goal. Now, why is that important? FloJo, when she was competing in the 1988 games, she wrote down in her diary the time she planned on winning and completing the 100-meter dash. She wrote down 10.49 seconds. Now, that would have been a world record. Every day as she's driving to work, she's got it on her dashboard, 10.49 seconds. As she's brushing her teeth in the morning, it's on the mirror. Does anybody put affirmations on your mirror? I knew you guys were those type of people. I do the same thing, 10.49 seconds. When she was working out, working at a job, running on the track, 10.49 seconds. Do you know she won the gold medal and broke the world record in 10.49 seconds? Is that amazing? That is not an accident, and that is the power of clarity. So when you're putting your plan together, know specifically what you want to do. For example, is there a difference between the goal of writing a book and writing a best-selling book? Yeah. Is there a difference between selling 100 copies and 1,000,000 copies? Yeah. Right. The strategy is different. That's why the more clear you are on what you want to create, the more effective plan you can put together to make it happen. So the next step is once we know the specific result we want to create, the second step is to identify what are the skills needed. What's the knowledge, resources, or skills that we're going to need to make this dream happen? A good example of this is Katie Couric. We all know her from the Today Show. Katie, when she started her career, she wasn't really that good. Is that amazing? It's amazing. She started her career as an assignment editor for CNN. After one of her earlier on-camera appearances, the president, Reese Schoenfeld, called the station she was reporting from and demanded that she never be on camera again. He said she was horrible, and she was definitely not anchor material. Now, that would not be your best day. Would you agree? She said she went home, cried her eyes out. But ultimately, it didn't stop her. Why? She had a purpose. She loves to report. She loves communicating. So she went out, she hired a voice coach. She worked on her interviewing skills. She learned to project her voice. And years, actually 9 years later, she got the position because she prepared herself. She didn't fall into it. And that is the power of preparation. No matter what it is, you might say, oh, well, she read a best-selling book. Yeah, I could say, you know, she could do that, but I couldn't. That is not true. The only reason that I'm standing here today is I was willing to do what's necessary, just like you. I was willing to put a plan together to find people who could help me and to educate myself. I spent a lot of money on it, but it pays off. And then the next question, and I think this is the best question you could ask yourself, is what is the single most important activity that you could do that if you did it every single day would create exponential results? I sat next to a woman on a plane, and we were talking about New Year's resolutions. And she told me that last year, she had a New Year's resolution to walk 20 minutes every single day. Now, that doesn't sound really like all that big of a New Year's resolution, does it? But, you know, she lives in Chicago. And Chicago gets really cold in the winter, and it gets windy. And, of course, we all have flu season, and she travels for a living. And so sometimes she'd get home 11 o'clock, midnight. Do you think the absolute last thing she felt like doing was putting on her gym shoes and walking 20 minutes that evening? Absolutely. But you know what? She made the commitment. And in 1 year, she did not miss one time of walking. And what happens once she started walking? You start with a 20-minute commitment, and then you're starting to feel good about 20 minutes into it. And then you do 30 minutes, and then you do 40 minutes. In 1 year of doing nothing more than walking 20 minutes every single day, she lost 40 pounds and was in the shape and the health of her life. That is the power of a 20-minute commitment. They say that, you know, we overestimate what we can do in a year, and we far underestimate what we can do in a lifetime. So focus. Once you have your project, you know the desired result, you know the skills you've got to develop. What is the most important thing you can do in 2003 that will give you just, you will, by leaps and bounds, move to the next level? All right, is everybody committed to doing that? Because sometimes don't you think it's easier to focus on one thing? I do this with all my projects. I have like 10 projects I'm working on, and I get overwhelmed. So what do? I focus on what's the next thing I need to do to keep my project in action. I can handle one thing. So keep asking yourself the same question. What's the next thing I need to do to keep this project in action? So once we have our purpose, we have a vehicle to express this purpose, which is our passion. We believe in ourselves. We have unstoppable confidence. We have a plan in place. The fifth step to creating more unstoppable results is to realize that we're strengthened by a team. You know, it's hard enough doing amazing things in your life. It's hard enough when you have supportive people in your life. But if you don't have positive people, if you have negative people in your life, they will be the death of your dream. And so we need to find unstoppable people, find mentors, family members, colleagues, people who can support them on their journey. And a great example of this, the power of friends, was Billy Payne, who brought the Olympics to Atlanta. Do you all know, have you heard of him? He was a real estate lawyer. And so he had no experience in professional management or sports management. The most he'd ever traveled was in the US or North America. He'd never even traveled abroad. The city where he lived in wasn't exactly an international hub, Atlanta, right? And the only sports experience he ever had was playing college football. So what in God's name ever gave Billy Payne the idea that he could bring the Olympics to Atlanta? This is the most prized sporting event in the world. And that year, Athens, Greece, everybody thought it was a shoo-in. And you know what he said? He said, friends. Friendship will sustain an effort and an idea long before rationality will support it. And he came up with the Atlanta nine people. And they started crossing every square inch of the city, looking for support. The Atlanta Journal called it a nutty dream. The experts called it a long shot. Sports marketing groups thought they had lost their minds, that Billy Payne and his group did. And the Chamber of Commerce said there's no way they would recommend that to their corporations because they had zero chance of bringing the Olympics to Atlanta. And yet, do you know what Billy Payne said? He said that he steers clear of anybody who tells him he can't do something, and he will gravitate towards people who come up with solutions. And that is, do you want to give him a hand? That's for our life. Yeah, please. Who needs people to tell us we can't do something? We're looking for somebody who can give us a way, give us a solution to create what we want to create. And ultimately, of course, he brought the games to Atlanta. And a very important strategy that we all need to do is to really assess, what does our support team look like right now? And how do we want to make it better? Does anybody want more support in their life? So what I want to recommend, and we don't have time to go through this exercise, but I wanted to leave it with you, and later I want you to go through it. And I want you to write down 10 people in your life that are the most engaged in your life. You see them the most, they spend the most amount of time with you. All right, so your mom, your dad, or your children, your husband, whatever, colleagues, people at work. And make a list. And then I want you to rate them between a 1 and a 10. A 1 means they rob you of your dream. Every time they're around you, they're complaining, they're saying why it's never going to happen, and everything is woe is me. A 10 means they're just the biggest cheerleader that you have. They're always thinking about what's possible. They believe in you. You walk away from them feeling great. And then you add up the score, and you divide it by 10, the number of people that you put on your list. If you have anything less than an average number of 7, and 7 is even, I think, a little on the low side for what you guys are up to in the world, we need to rearrange the team. Now, does that mean sometimes we can't really kick off some of the people on the team, right? Because you actually might be married to them. So I'm not suggesting that we have mass divorce in this audience. I'm just suggesting that what you need to do is assess the energy that you're getting in your life. Do you guys feel energized? Do you feel like you really have a support team that's really energetic in your life? Or do you feel like you've got people who draw you down? You walk out of this room and you've got people telling you, you spent what? You spent all this time in this room with all these crazy people? That's what most people hear. And it has been confirmed by researchers at UC Berkeley, if you associate with prominent people who are doing something in their lives, you will have a higher propensity to do the same thing. And if you're around losers, if you're around people who complain, guess what you're going to turn into? Complainers. I mean, it's just the way it works. We're all in the same certain vibration. We attract who we are. So one strategy is if you look at your life and you've got a bunch of negative people, we might want to consider what's happening with us, right? Because we're attracting that. So take some time to go through this process later today, writing down the people and assess. And then start replacing some of the members of the team. Some of the people, colleagues, you can just bless them and move them along, right? And that will be a powerful strategy to create more support. Sometimes it's easier to get support from a complete stranger. I sat on a plane when my book first came out, and I met a guy who actually promotes songs in Nashville. And he became a great friend, and we actually started trading, consulting with each other. Because you've all heard the adage, the prophet has no honor in their own home. Can anybody relate to that? The people who've known us for 20 years, they can't see us. My family couldn't see me doing this. They saw me as a secretary or working for Sprint. So I needed to find other people who could go, yeah, I totally see that. The truth is I had my mentors, Miller and Bob, they told me I was great so many times, I actually started believing them. But you know what? It took a long time. It really did. So that's the power of finding positive people in your life. So once we have a team who are supporting us along our path, the sixth characteristic of an unstoppable person is that they are renewed by creativity. Now, this is really important because, nothing goes exactly as we plan. Right? You come up with a dream, you've got your plan in place, you take the first step, and then the unexpected happens, right? The loan falls through. The spouse isn't as supportive as you hoped they would be. You're spending all these years developing a product, and before it comes to market, you see an ad for the exact same thing you've been working on. That's not pretty. So that's what happens. And so if we want to be unstoppable, we have to be willing to come up with other solutions. There are so many ways to solve a problem. And actually, let me tell you a quick story. Stephen Hilbert is the founder of Conseco Inc. It's a $1 billion insurance company. When he started this company many years ago, he couldn't find one investor willing to give him money for this startup insurance company. So what did he do? He and a friend typed up a 3-page business plan. And they hit the streets, knocking on doors. They had the idea that they would sell shares in this company door to door. Now, this is in the early 80s, and a money market account would earn you 17%. So who in their right mind would invest in this insurance company with a 3-page plan? They knocked on thousands of doors, and do you know between 1979 and 1982, they raised $4 million. And today, Conseco Inc. is a $1 billion organization, and Stephen Hilbert, at the age of 51, became one of the richest people in the world. Is that amazing? So what would most people do? You got an idea, you're gonna start an insurance company, all these people say no. What does most people do? They quit. So my point here, and after you read and you kind of immerse yourself in this thinking, is you realize that no doesn't mean never. It just means this isn't going to work or not with them. That's all. And that we continually draw upon our creativity, we will solve the problem. So once we have a plan in place, we've got a team that supports us, we are creatively solving problems like Anita Roddick did, right, with the Body Shop. The final step to creating more unstoppable moments in our lives is that unstoppable people are rewarded by perseverance. Just saying that feels good. Why don't you say that? Rewarded by perseverance. Isn't that great? You know, there's an adage that says the arrow that hits the bullseye is a result of 100 misses. And success is nothing more than a statistical event. If we will continue to go through the process that we're talking today, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. Some great people in my program that I interviewed, Amy Grant, we all know her. She's actually she is the most successful recording artist in the Christian genre. All right, so she's won 6 Grammys, all of these awards. When her first album came out, they planned this big tour. They were all excited, and they're expecting this big, huge turnout. So they sent out 1,500 handwritten engraved invitations. So it's engraved, and then they handwrite each one. Do you know not one person showed up? She sang 90 minutes to the store manager. Isn't that amazing? But look at what she's done today. Randy Travis has sold over 15 million albums, and yet he was rejected by every recording label in Nashville several times, not just once. Several times. How many people would hang in there? Sally Jesse Raphael graduated from Columbia University with a broadcasting degree. She went into the announcers of NBC Radio and they said, Sally, you have a great voice for broadcasting, but you should become a secretary because we're not hiring women. And Ted Koppel from Nightline, I mean, he's just arguably one of the most distinguished journalists around in our decade. And yet he said when he started his career, he could have wallpapered an entire wall with all the rejection notices that he received in his pursuit of becoming a foreign correspondent. He said at one time he was so desperate for money, he started interviewing for advertising companies because he knew he could at least write, and they wouldn't even hire him. So do you see what I'm saying? When you look at these people, you realize, you know what? If they can do it, you can too. If you're willing to persevere, if you're willing to hold on to your dream. And I want to ask you a question. When you think about what you really want to create, we're all excited, and you're here this weekend, and you're around amazing people, and Harv is just unstoppable. But when you really go into your heart and you look at what you want to accomplish, what comes up for you? What do you think has stopped you up until this point of really doing what you want to do in your life? What types of things stop us? Fear. Right, fear of what? Fear of everything. Fear that we're not good enough. Fear that we don't have what it takes. Fear that we're not perfect enough. Do we have any perfectionists in this room? Right, so what happens with us perfectionists? I'll put my hand up on that one. We want everything to be perfect. Well, guess what? If we wait till everything's perfect, what's going to happen? Zero. This is the truth. The first 2 years that I spoke, I was in pain after every single presentation. So hard on myself. Oh, why did you say that? Oh, why did you do this? I was in pain, but you know what? If you're not willing to keep going, finally I realized this isn't all about me anyway. That was a shock. No, I'm just kidding. Gosh, I actually have an audience here I have to think about. But it's true, that's what happens. We become so critical of ourselves, and that stops us because it takes courage to move forward. What else stops us? Lack of worthiness. Did you know 90% of the working population will earn within 10% of what they're earning today for the rest of their lives? So just look around this room. 90%, now I don't think the average is here. I think you guys are skewed much greater than that. But just imagine, the percentages are 90% of the working population will earn within 10% of what they're doing today for the rest of their lives. Why is that? Are people, is 90% of the population working to their optimum capacity? No. But that's all they believe they're worth. That's all they believe it's possible. And again, what I said, how many people here could be more unstoppable if the people in your life would just get their act together? Right? So what I want you to do is I want you to take the red paper, the What's Stopping You card, and there are 3 lines. And I want you to think of one thing that has been stopping you from really going to the next level in your life. Because you're committed to being unstoppable in 2003. Is that right? Yes. Exactly. So if we want to be unstoppable, we have to be willing to look inside and see what's been getting in the way and be willing to get rid of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you about 3 minutes, not that much time. But you guys already know, we all know what's stopping us. This doesn't really take a lot of time and reflection, in all honesty. Am I right? Of course we do. So I want you to write on this card the one thing that you want to get rid of. And we're going to get rid of this card. Now, in get rid of this, if you want to receive inspiration, I have an inspirational email that we send out every single day. It's a quote and then a story like what we're talking about today every single week. If you want to receive that, just put your address and check yes. If you don't, that's okay. Just write down the what's stopping you, because we're going to put this in a basket in the back of the room, and we're going to get rid of it. How many people are interested in getting rid of that thing that's been stopping them and holding you back? Can I see you raise your hands? Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 minutes. I want you to write down what's getting in your way, and I want you to put it on the card, and we're going to get rid of it in a few minutes. All right? So let me ask you a question. Has what you've written on your card served you in really creating the life you want? No. So I'm going to suggest that you let it go. All right? And so when we leave this building, or actually at the break, we're going to have a big box in the back of the room, and I want you to put it in there. And in putting it in there, you are saying to yourself and to the universe, to the world, that you are no longer going to settle for what's been stopping you. Now, am I saying because you put this thing down and you put it in a box that all of your problems are going to magically disappear? That's exactly what I'm saying. Poof, it's gone. But you know what I am saying? By having the courage to go within and really look at what's stopping you, and then writing it down and making a decision to let it go, what happens? It opens your life to new knowledge, new understanding, new resources that will enable you to move to the next level. I had something written down on my card for 9 months. You know, I do this exercise all the time. So I have things that stop me as well. And I knew there was one thing in my life that was stopping me, and I had it written down for 9 months. And finally, I had the courage to get rid of it. But the point is, without the awareness, we continue to move forward with things that get in our path. Does that make sense? All right. So I'm going to give you a great example of the power of this concept. Do you all know who Bruce Lee was? He's arguably one of the greatest martial artists of all times. And he's also a wonderful teacher, and people would come from around the world just to be with him. And they would say, Master, what can I do to become a great martial artist like you? And so he would take them into a gymnasium, and he would take them through these moves, because he wanted to see what they knew, what was their knowledge, what were their skills regarding martial arts. And then he would take them into a room, and he would sit them down, and he would put a glass of Coke in front of them, and he would say, I want this glass to represent your knowledge. This is your understanding of what it takes to be really great at martial arts, okay? This is what you know. These are your beliefs, your conditioning. And I want this glass of water to represent my knowledge, my understanding, my beliefs of what it takes to be a great martial artist. This is what you want from me. What is the problem? It's full, right? There's no room. I can't help you. I want to help you, but I can't help you because you're already full of your own knowledge. And if you're willing to let go of this, we can work together. But as long as you hold on to this, I can't give you what you want. And you know what? It's not easy letting go of some things. But that is really ultimately where freedom lies. And so how many people here are willing to say, I'm going to get rid of it? I don't know if it's going to go away tomorrow. Maybe it's going to go away. I'm committed to getting rid of it. How many people are committed to getting rid of that one thing that's stopping you? I want you to stand up. All right, look around the room and give yourself a hand. Absolutely. I want you to look at your neighbor. Okay. I want you to look at your neighbor and tell them, I'm getting rid of what's been stopping me. How many of you are really, really committed to creating a specific result that you want in the year 2003? Can I say something? You're really committed. All right. So what happens is we've had 2 hours together to talk about these principles. Would you agree that there's a difference between knowing what to do and then actually doing it? Yes. Yes. Okay. Why is that a challenge? Why do we get stuck? One reason is we walk out of this room of unstoppability. And we walk into the stoppable world where all the heathens and non-believers live. Does anybody have any heathens or non-believers in your life? Right? So you're all excited. Boy, after you leave Wealth and Wisdom, you're ready to go. And what's going to happen? The naysayers are going to hit you. That energy is going to hit you when you walk out of the room. So we need more knowledge, right? We need this to replace what we're willing to get rid of. Would you agree, let me ask you this, that an unstoppable mindset is paramount to anything that you want to create in your life? Yes. It just is. If you cling to a purpose that's bigger than you, and you find a passion that inspires you, you believe in yourself, you make a plan and you take action, you build a team that supports you, you creatively solve problems, and you absolutely refuse to quit, you'll realize your dreams. You'll break through any obstacle that comes in your path, and ultimately you will be unstoppable. God bless all of you. Thank you.
Let's hear that.
Thank you. God bless you.
Cynthia Kersey.